Okay, we will go ahead and get started this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. This might look a little different than what you're used to. We always typically do an informational meeting sometime around this time of the year. Of course, we're in a new building this year, so it's a little bit different. Of course, with everything else, we've done a virtual event. Just some housekeeping type material first to start. We are using a Zoom webinar system here, so it's a little bit different than what you might typically see with Zoom, so some of the features and things are just a little bit different. We do have over 100 participants joining us, and I think there's 119 right now is what I'm seeing that are joining our presentation today. There's a Q&A you'll notice on one of the menus there that you should be able to ask questions during the event, and we'll answer those questions there. And we'll make a recording of this presentation as well too, and share that out on our website and YouTube channel. So the Q&A is a little bit different than just a chat that will come just directly to us, and then we can respond to those during the presentation, and then I'll also have an opportunity at the end to answer those as well. Because it is a webinar and not a typical Zoom meeting, you don't have to worry about your picture or being on mute or any of those other things either. So we've got all that taken care of. So, but good evening and welcome virtually, I suppose, to the Brawley School. I am the proud principal here, Mark Shinkarik. This is my third year as principal of this school. I suppose first year at the Brawley School and 2 years prior at Mount Morn. And I'm joined by a couple of people, and I'll have them introduce themselves to you. I'll start with you, Miss White.
Hello, thanks for joining us. My name is Elizabeth White, and I am the IB coordinator at the Brawley School. This is my second year at the Brawley School. I was at Mount Morn for 1 year before we switched. But I have been involved in IB within Idle Statesville Schools since it started in 2009.
All right, and my other friend here, Ada.
Hi, I'm Ayosagi. I'm an 8th grade student at Brawley IB.
All right, so Ada's going to help me answer some questions because she knows probably a more interesting story about Ada. The other day I asked Ada if she would help us this evening, and she told me that she needed to check her calendar. So she whipped out her phone and she had her calendar there all organized, and she made this work for us coming here. She's more organized than I am, so I appreciate her attending, and she can give us a student perspective on a lot of questions and things. I think that's always helpful. So tonight is our Rising 6th Grade Parent and Student Informational Night, and it says 6th grade, but it's really not exclusive to that. We always take students in for Rising 7th and 8th graders as well, and I know some of the participants today are those interested in maybe taking a jump from their current school. And of course, we can offer that. We'll talk through that process with you today. So this is our staff picture this year from 2020, 2021. Of course, we couldn't do a picture together. So that's our staff there. And you can see there we have about 50 to 60 staff members here at school. Some staff members are here every day, and some are just itinerant staff. We're going to go through a presentation and talk a little bit first about what it is to be an IB school, and then discuss kind of specific to the Brawley School what it looks like. And then towards the end of our presentation, we'll talk about the application process, which I know that there seems to be a lot of questions about it. So I'm going to start off our presentation with a poll question. So if our moderator will place that poll question up. I just want a little feedback as we start here. Which of the following is most important to you as you consider a school for your child? Is it high academic performance of a school, engaging in hands-on teaching, educating the whole child, or opportunities for extracurricular involvement and service? And I know all of us would probably say all of these are important, but if you could just pick maybe the most important to you. We'll just take just a moment here to register that feedback. All right, so hopefully you had a chance there to put that feedback in. And these are the results from our survey. And as you can see, it's pretty split, kind of surprising to see these results actually, but pretty split there. But hopefully what I want to kind of bring to your attention is that what I believe we do here at our school and what's made us so successful is really addressing all four of those items there. And we're going to kind of hit on each one of them and explain them. But I often hear that from parents is, there's different priorities as a parent. You might value something more so than another family may value. And I think it's important for a school to really do all of those well. And ultimately that identifies a school as a great school. And I believe we have that here at the Brawley School. And we're going to kind of jump in our presentation and show you how we're meeting those things. So we are the Brawley School, an IB World School, and this is our first year in this building. We were in Mount Morn for a number of years. Over 10 years we spent at the Mount Morn building, and that it was an existing elementary school, really had been there for 100 years, literally. And so that building was, outdated and wasn't really built for our program. And so when they built a new middle school in our area at Woodland Heights Middle School on the campus of Woodland Heights Elementary, that gave us the opportunity to move in this building. They spent all summer and really, when the stay-at-home orders started back in March or April is really when they started jumping in here and renovating the building. Wasn't a complete renovation, but it was a multi-million-dollar project here to get some of the building here up to code, as well as adding some improvements and some items that really make it fit for our program. And so we're excited to be here. Obviously, been a bit disappointing this year to not quite be able to utilize the building on how we would in a typical year, but nevertheless, it's gone very well. Have a lot more room here to spread out. We currently have about 550 or so students here on any given day. I shouldn't say any given day. Now that we're at kind of part-time right now, we do have about 200 or so a day. And then we have, like I said, 50 or 60 staff members, and we have the capacity here in our building to go over 700 students in our building. So there's plenty of room to spread out. And of course it is a middle school campus, has been. And so some of the items like fields and sports areas is much more suited for a middle school, more so than our last school. Now our tradition is really the same. We have a new school name, but as many of you know, we have a long-standing tradition as a school in our county, in our area here, with high-performing results. One of the first questions on that poll you did just a few minutes ago was about a high-performing school, and we are that. We are we're the highest-performing middle school in our region. The third highest performing middle school in the state. All of this data is based off our end of grade test that we took the last time we took it, which was 2 years ago. Wasn't last year, it was the year prior. So almost 2 years ago, but that's the last data point that we have there. So our school performance grade was third highest middle school in the state, outperformed all Iredell County charter schools, highest performance grade in the last 6 years, and we exceeded growth with the highest growth score over the last 6 years. So like I said, it's a new name to our school, but really the same tradition is what we're bringing over here. And we hope to just expand upon that. It'd be interesting what the end of the year looks like, if we'll take end of grade testing and how all of that will kind of spell out for us. But we've been a very successful program here for a number of years. We're pretty proud of that. At this time, I'm going to switch it over to our IB coordinator, Ms. White, and she's going to explain a little bit about what an IB school is.
So what is IB? IB stands for International Baccalaureate, and we are very proud to be one of the IB schools across the state and in our country and also across the world. You can see the first bullet there is the IB's mission statement, which is to develop inquiring, knowledgeable, and caring young people that ultimately create a better world through intercultural understanding. And so you'll see in the next short part of our presentation, different ways that we do that within the classroom. I will say that we are passionate about this mission statement. We try to embody that in all of the classrooms, and all of our teachers work extremely hard to pull all of these components together within the classroom. Two parts of this also are challenging programs and rigorous assessments. We'll look a little bit later at what assessments look like and hands-on learning and projects and different components that come alive within the classroom, but that's an important part of the IB framework. And the ultimate goal, the third bullet there, is for them, students, to be lifelong learners with empathy, compassion, all the things that you would just want good human beings to have. That's one of the things I love about the IB philosophy and the MYP framework, is it just rolls together all of the things that you would want a well-rounded student and also adult to have. Iredell Statesville Schools is very proud to offer the full continuum of IB programs within our district. We'll be focusing on the schools that are within the southern half of Iredell County. So the first mascot there is for Cottle Creek. So in K through 5, the IB program is called the PYP, or Primary Years Program. You do not have to complete the PYP in order to come to the Brawley School, which offers the next IB program in the continuum, which is the Middle Years Program, or MYP for short. You'll learn with IB, there's acronyms and different names for anything. It's kind of like learning a different language, but in a good way. So in the middle, you see Brawley there. We have the MYP. So our school is 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, which is the first 3 years of the MYP. Now the MYP is actually a 5-year program. And so you can see the last mascot there is for the South Iredell High School Vikings. The MYP continues at South for 9th and 10th grades. So that's year 4 and 5 of the MYP. Following up on that, for 11th and 12th grade, our students also have the opportunity to participate in the diploma program, also known as the DP, or the career-related program, CP.
Well, it doesn't lock you into South Iredell. And I get that question quite often. Do kids continue on to South Iredell, or do they look at other options? And I would say most of our students do continue in the IB program and continue and move on to South Iredell. And then depending on the year and the cohort, it really kind of ranges there. Most of them go to South. And when I say most, I don't mean almost all of them. I mean more than 50% of them. We do have a large group that, of course, goes to Lake Norman High School, which is an option as well. And a more popular, I guess, an option that's kind of gaining popularity right now is the early colleges. There's 3 early colleges in the district, so we're seeing a lot of students choose that program too. And when I say a lot, it's just more so than past years. Maybe 15 to 20 students will choose that option as well too. So I've got Ada in 8th grade here, so I'm putting her on the spot because I promise we did no real planning with it. But Ada, what are your kind of goals? Where are you looking at attending school next year?
Well, right now I'm thinking that I'm going to continue on to South Iredell to finish the MYP program, and then I'm also looking at NCSSM, the North Carolina School of Science and Math, for 11th and 12th grade.
Yeah, great. All right, thanks. So that's another, I should have mentioned that too. We have a lot of our students that are interested in that program, and they actually come to our school and do little presentations for our 8th graders, and another option as well too. So cool.
That's one of the great things about Iredell Statesville schools, is having a lot of choice programs and a lot of great options to choose from. So the MYP, you can see this graphic here. This kind of rolls together all the main components of the MYP. So in the orangish red color there, you can see there are 8 courses. And one thing that I love about IB is that all of the courses are considered equal. In a traditional school, there might be more emphasis on math or ELA, science, just any courses, but the IB framework does educate the whole child, which is one of the poll choices from earlier. And so this kind of shows that all of the courses are equal. So we have what you consider the main subjects, language and literature, which in a typical school would be called ELA. Another different name that IB has for things. So language and literature, math, science, and we also have language acquisition. So all of our students take a second language. We have Spanish, French, or Mandarin Chinese, which has been a fairly recent but successful addition to our program. So that's very exciting. We also have fine arts, physical and health education, design. And I think I left one class out. Social studies is not called social studies, it's individuals and societies. You might say, why does IB have all these different names for things? And I think IB really thinks carefully, for instance, individuals and societies. If you think about social studies, yes, it's studying the social aspect, but it's about people, it's about societies, how people collaborate together, how they've influenced other cultures and different geographic regions. And so it's just part of the framework that I think really helps students think about what they're learning. So all 8 courses are considered core classes. You can see more towards the center of the MYP framework there. We have service learning. So again, it looks a little different this year like everything else, but that's a very important part of raising students to be having empathy and compassion for other people, especially in the middle school years. It can be very easy to be self-focused sometimes. So participating in service learning helps students see how they fit into the larger community, both a local community as well as a global community. So that's another great thing about the MYP framework is the service component. And that's for all of our students. Another thing that we have is called Approaches to Learning, which Mr. Shinkarik will talk a little bit more about in a little bit, in global contexts and key concepts as well. So the very bottom, that kind of blue part, international mindedness, all of these things roll together, talking about other cultures, different points of view, different perspectives. 2 people thinking about something might also be able to be right at the same time, even though they have different ideas. So all of these things together create the holistic framework of the MYP. So keeping all of that in mind, you can see on this screen the Brawley School's vision statement that we exist to inspire our students to become compassionate, lifelong learners who are responsible global citizens, using different modes of communication, and ultimately having a more peaceful world. And you might just think, is this words on the paper or on the screen? And you'll see how we really kind of embody this in different ways throughout the school day and beyond as well.
More specific as a school, these are some other real important tenets to the MYP and what we do here at the Brawley School. Just hitting that point again, we offer 8 classes, and I think this is probably a fundamental idea to understand when choosing a middle school for your child for next year. We offer more classes than what a typical traditional middle school would offer. And so again, whereas a typical middle school they would consider their 4 classes to be English, language arts, science, social studies, and math, and then add on what most middle schools refer to as a wheel class, which might be PE one day, and the next day it might be art. We consider all of those classes core classes. And I think a master schedule really speaks to what you support or what you emphasize as a school. And so all of our students, they take the same amount of minutes in a math classroom as they would in their fine arts class. And so I think that really speaks to we value all of them equally. So that right there is kind of the first fundamental difference that I think again, to consider for a middle school for next year is that your child will be taking 8 courses versus what a traditional school would take is maybe 5 or 6 courses. So again, we have the same school year. We have the same, we'll start in August and end in May or June. But your child's going to have to take 8 of those courses. We do offer some choices in some of those courses at our school, specifically with our fine arts class and with our world language. As Ms. White said, we offer 3 different languages. I believe Woodland Heights might offer Spanish, but it's done as kind of more of on a 9 weeks basis. They only take, the students will kind of maybe dabble a little bit in Spanish, but we're taking it, you're going to spend as much time in a Spanish classroom as you would in your science classroom. So what will happen at the end of our program is at the end of 8th grade, you'll go to high school with a high school credit in that foreign language class. So instead of starting 10th grade, or sorry, instead of starting 9th grade in Spanish, you will start 9th grade with 10th grade Spanish. You'll be in your sophomore level Spanish course, or whatever foreign language you choose. The other one is art. We offer 5 different art courses. We offer visual arts, orchestra, band, chorus, and I'm missing one, and drama. Some of our 8th graders are participating in show choir, which is kind of more of a performance-based chorus class. Some of our students, we have offered dance in the past, so it just kind of depends on the cohort and what we're able to do. So those are the kind of the first difference there is we offer 8 classes. The next piece there is criteria for success. What I really like about IB is that we do there is consistency across what we do. So this point here is that what we're doing here is going to be the same as what a school in China would be doing in their 8th grade year or 6th grade year, whatever it would be. We also have to follow the North Carolina Standard Course of Study. The North Carolina Standard Course of Study dictates to teachers what they have to teach. How they teach it is often described as what the IB will ask us to do. The other component here is learning through inquiry. We strive for student-centered environment where teachers are positioned as facilitators rather than keepers of information. So you'll see that you do a lot of more hands-on, project-based type learning, and it kind of refers to that in that last one there about assessments. So oftentimes we take summative assessments at the end of a unit. And although we do still have regular tests, multiple choice tests and things like that, we also have to assess using an IB assessment, which often is some type of like scenario. So the example I often use is in a math class, a traditional school might have just a multiple choice test where we are asking students to, maybe you are studying area and perimeter and you're an architect and you're having to design a building that has 1,200 square feet and you want to see how much materials you're going to need to build this house. And so that would be an example of an assessment that students would have to do. So it looks different. These are 4 other important components of IB. The learner profile traits, we talk about these all the time. These are character development type skills to build good citizens. And those are important. We refer to them all the time. We do announcements every morning, and oftentimes we'll select students and teachers who have exemplified these learner profile traits. And we refer to them all the time in lessons when teachers are teaching. I was walking in the hallways this past week. There's a 6th grade bulletin board up that individuals and societies teachers are created, where they looked at people back in history and selected these individuals that exemplified certain learner profile traits. And there's a bulletin board out there in the hallway. So global context is another piece that we look at. There are various global contexts that we always spin into any of our lessons. These are ideas, and you could see them listed there, on like sustainability, personal and cultural expression, globalization. So these are ideas that we build into our lessons as well, that teachers have to build in their units. Approaches to learning is one of my favorite components of IB, and I think it fits fantastically into middle school because we not only teach students information, but we teach them how to learn. And I think building into the 21st century and what these kids are going to need to be prepared for in the world is, employers no longer want people that just have rote memory and know how to do something. They need to be able to attack problems and solve problems. I mean, it's obvious that information is readily available. We can Google and find anything that we want to. I was talking to our French teacher today about, good old fashioned Google Translator that's available to our students, so they can easily, translate material in the class. So information is all out there, but what kids need to be able to do is be able to figure out how to learn. So oftentimes we just say, go study, right? Well, what does that mean? What does that mean to an 11-year-old to go study? Where we teach kids how to study, or how to organize their work, or how to research things. And we're actually embedding these ideas. Each month we have an ATL of the month. And this month's is based on media literacy. So we're talking a lot this month on how to access information, how to avoid fake news, how to decipher through the information that we have to make sure it's a reliable source. Talking about plagiarism and copyright. And again, information is readily available. And so how do we make sure that we do it in an ethical manner as well too? And the last component there is on services action. Our students complete some type of service project. Each year we've kind of done this a little bit differently each year. You may have heard us having to complete community service hours, and our students will do community service, but it's done in more of a kind of a grassroots, authentic manner now, where they're learning something in class and that inspires them to go serve in the community. They have to do a module outside of school, but it's not necessarily like they're going to go. The old days of Mount Morin, they used to go out and they'd have to mow grass for their neighbor and do that, for 15 hours. Whereas ours is embedded and based on a project that they're currently working on. And I don't know, Ms. White, do you want to explain our service action project that we're using for this year?
Sure. So our students this year, we had to kind of be creative and flexible with how we approach service. So we wanted something that students could do safely from home if they chose to do so. So our students this year are participating in the Do Good from Home Challenge. It's a national endeavor that you do just what it says, you do good from home. So it starts out with students listening to an empathy podcast, hearing how within the past year, just how different groups of people have been impacted by the virus, healthcare workers, students, teachers, frontline workers, just different groups of people trying to inspire that empathy that we've been talking about. And so that sort of kicks off their learning and their brainstorming. And then we have a series of planning and reflection guiding questions where they will actually identify a group of people, whether that be parents, postal workers, healthcare workers that they think have been impacted, and they're going to choose something that they want to do to help this group of people. It could be through advocacy, raising awareness what this group of people is going through. So there might be like a slight research. In the past, we've had a more heavy research component. So we're trying to balance that this year, just with everything going on in online learning. And so ultimately, students are going to identify a need, plan what they're going to do, actually take action, and then share and reflect on it. So we're really excited about that this year. We weren't quite sure how to make this work. We wanted something really authentic and meaningful for our students that they could get excited about and complete in a safe manner. So we're really excited to see what they're going to do this year with that.
Yeah. And again, we still do service projects. We just completed a project last month where we donated close to 100 baskets, Thanksgiving baskets, to families up in Statesville through MB Mills Elementary School. Our 7th graders worked on that project. So we do things like that every year as well too. So there's certainly never a shortage of service that we provide to our community. And again, the IB is trying to make that more authentic, that you learn about something. You're studying water in 8th grade, and that inspires you to think about water accessibility across the world, and it motivates you to build some type of project to help other people. That's a kind of an example of how that might look. I always think this is kind of interesting. These are the, one of the IB components is that teachers always create a statement of inquiry, which is kind of an overlining message for their unit that they're studying. And so I asked all of our 6th grade teachers this week to give me their current statement of inquiry that they're working on, as well as an activity that they're doing in class to support that statement of inquiry. So you can kind of read through these. And I always like to do this in this presentation because I want you to understand the rigor in which we present information and teach with our kids. So we do some really cool projects that are kind of aligned. These are all 6th grade ones. These aren't like, give me the best one of the year. This is what our current 6th graders are working on this year. And I'll kind of scroll through. There's, of course, we have multiple art courses. Kind of page through them. Ada, do you have an example? I'll put her on the spot again. Do you have an example of maybe a cool project that you're working on currently in any of your classes?
I know in chorus we're working on preparing a medley for the Scholastic Cup, but
Okay.
I don't know if that counts.
Yeah, that's really good. And then Miss Russell was telling me about a project you're doing in Individuals in Society. Tell me about that.
So we were all assigned a founding father, like mine is John Jay, and the assignment we just submitted for the Monday, Tuesday cycle was we had to write a Twitter post as if we were that founding father. And next class we're setting up to have a debate as if from the opinions of those founding fathers that we were each assigned.
That's awesome. Great example. Middle schoolers love to debate, Ada. I'm sure you'll do great. I have a 3-year-old that loves to debate. So here is the rest of kind of rounds out the 8 courses that we're doing there. Even PE, it's been a little bit interesting on doing PE during a pandemic, but they've made it work. Design is a course that we work through the design cycle. It's kind of a more or less like a problem solving type model. And we use our computer tech education courses that are North Carolina required classes through the Standard Course of Study and through the Department of Public Instruction, require us to teach CTE courses. And of course, CTE, Computer Tech Ed, is a huge, it's growing across the country because of the jobs that are out there for kids when they finish school. But typically in 6th grade, we do a lot of coding in 6th grade. And then we move towards more tech ed type things, and possibly even some career courses we'll look at adding to our school here soon. So these are kind of what's kind of going on in our building. Now, I always get a lot of questions on some other ideas as a school, some other kind of miscellaneous items that I always want to kind of share with you. First one is bus transportation. I get this question quite a bit through any of our informational meetings and things, so I put it in here. We provide transportation for any of our students that are within the district. We have 3 direct routes, meaning that if you live in some of our neighborhoods, they get a bus that picks them up in the neighborhood and then takes them right to school and then drops them off right in their neighborhood. There's very few of those. Most of our students that ride a bus are going to use what's called a shuttle bus. So in the morning, you would get picked up at your neighborhood. It would take you to either one of your home schools, which would be Woodland Heights or Lakeshore Middle School. And then while you were at that campus, you would then you would move to a different bus, and then that other bus would take you to our campus. We'd have a shuttle bus, we call it, that would take you to Brawley. And in the afternoon, it would be the opposite. You would get on one of our shuttle buses. They would take you to Woodland Heights Middle School or Lakeshore Middle School, and then they would take you home. So like, for example, I live off of Perth Road. My home school would be Lakeshore Middle School. And so if I had a middle schooler, they would, in the morning, leave my neighborhood, go to Lakeshore Middle School, and then get on a 220 or 225. And those buses would then take the student here to school. And then we would just do the opposite on the way home. We offer multiple sports. We actually expanded this year because we have more facilities. We're adding boys and girls soccer this year. And you can kind of see the sports that we offer as a school. Some sports we don't offer: football, cheerleading, wrestling. We don't offer those, but students can still participate in them. They just have to do them at their home school. So if you play any of these sports, at the top of the list here, you'll wear a Brawley School Phoenix uniform. Like Emma, this is one of our 7th graders this year on our cross country team. And if you play one of these sports here on the bottom, you'll wear a Lakeshore or a Woodland Heights Middle School uniform for those, but just to make sure that all of our students have accessibility. Some sports have JV and varsity, where typically 6th or 7th graders would play JV and then 7th and 8th graders would play varsity. We offer a lot of enrichment activities and clubs. These are most of our clubs that we offer here, although we're always kind of adding and taking away clubs. It just depends on the year and participants and that thing. This year, just like everything else, a little bit different. We might not be offering all of these this year, but on a typical year, these are the ones that we would offer. And, you know, it's often too that we have, you know, like I said, we'll add others as well. I had a couple teachers come to me the other day and they would like to do a poetry aloud club where students would be performing poetry kind of in a dramatic form. So Ada, do you do any enrichment activities or clubs at our school? And which ones?
I've previously done about 8 of them that are on this list. I'm currently doing Odyssey of the Mind, but it's with South Iredell, and I'm doing show choir, yearbook, and Battle of the Books this year. And those are all really fun. I love all of them.
Okay. All right. And you can actually, I think we have more students participating in enrichment activities and clubs than we do in sports, which I think is kind of our identity as a school. But we're pretty good in sports too, I would say. Our volleyball team won yesterday. They're 5-1. So, all right. So, kind of rounding this out now, is our program right for your child? I would say these are kind of the things that ultimately we think that students are going to be most successful in our program, and it really kind of comes down to that whole idea that they're having to take 8 courses in a year. In the same school year that what a traditional middle school student would have to do. They also have to take a foreign language as well, too. So I think our identity as a school is oftentimes people maybe misidentify us as a school just for academically gifted students. We have a large population of AIG students here at our school. In fact, anywhere from a third to half of our school is probably identified as AIG. But it's not a requirement for our school. I think where what happens is the pacing of our program is pretty tough. The idea that you have to take a second language can be very difficult if you have a child that maybe struggles in English. So adding a second language and then knowing that you have to take 8 classes is pretty demanding. I get the question often is, how much homework do you have as a school? Well, it would be impossible for us to offer 8 classes in the same time that Lakeshore Middle School offers, 5 classes, and to not expect there to be more work. I mean, I think that's just inevitable. I think we would all understand that would be the case. So these idea in taking pride in completing work, being timely and organized, and being motivated kind of by authentic means, our students are going to be successful in our program. We use a phrase here often in our school as learning for the sake of learning. So you're not really motivated by you just want to get an A, or you're not motivated because your parents told you better get an A, but you're motivated because you enjoy learning. That authentic learning is, I think students are going to be successful there. So going back to my question of how much homework do we offer, or what's the workload look like, it oftentimes is just in the eyes of the beholder. So the students that use their time wisely or are able to multitask and things find it much more manageable. Some courses are going to lend themselves to more. So for example, ELA is in most schools a core subject that we tested at the end of the year through through the state. So our teachers are having to move quickly to get that entire curriculum in. And so that class might lend itself to more homework. I would say typically students are going to have about 10 minutes per grade level is kind of how I look at it. 6th grade 60, 7th grade 70, 8th grade 80. Although it could be more or less, again, depending on the student. So I don't ever think it's, if we're spending much more time than that, then I would like to have a conversation, because there's some kind of disconnect. Oftentimes we find that it's students that are mismanaging their time or have a hard time doing those things independently. So again, I'll put Ada on the spot. Ada, how much homework do you typically have, and what has your workload been like coming through our school?
Well, this year's been kind of different because of the in-person versus virtual days, but in the past years, I felt like there was kind of an increase in homework as you went through the grades. Sixth grade, I didn't feel like there was quite a lot of homework. If you struggle in something, you're going to need to spend more time on it. Like personally, right now, I spend the most time on my math homework, but I feel like you could do it in an hour and a half or less for most people.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So that's kind of, like I said, that kind of goes back to it is being organized and helping with the pacing and things. So if you have a child that maybe struggles a little bit academically, it's not that this program is going to be impossible for them or that it's not going to be the right fit. It just might need more support. We might have to support them more as a school. And of course, we'll need your assistance with support at home to make that happen. So the next piece I'd like to get into now is our application process. We've made a shift here within the last couple of years, moving away from an application or an acceptance, I should say, to a recommendation. These ideas that we've talked about today about, building the whole child and trying to make good citizens, good people, and the idea of adding global context or making them internationally minded. Those are really ideas that I think should be for all kids. And so we've tried to make our program more accessible. But again, going back to that idea that it's 8 courses, their pacing is there, they're gonna have to learn a second language, means that it's gonna be tough for some kids. And for some kids, it may be too difficult. It may be better to be in a program that takes away some of those courses and puts more instructional minutes into math and ELA if those are weaknesses for the child. I mean, it only makes sense if that's a weakness of yours, then to get less instructional minutes at our school might not be the right fit. So what we do now is provide a recommendation to parents. We look at hard data and soft data. The hard data that we look at are scores, and this is going to look a little bit different this year for us. We're going to look at students' most recent math and ELA North Carolina check-in scores. There's actually 2 that we're going to look at, and I'm referring right now to our 5th graders, rising 6th graders. They've already taken the first check-in, and they're going to be taking the second check-in, I believe, in January. In addition, they're going to take another iReady assessment in January. So that'll give us 3 data points in math and 3 data points in ELA. Those are the hard data points. The soft data points that we look at are a survey, and I'll go over that survey in just a little bit. It's going to look at time management, how they're able to work in collaborative groups, those types of things. And then we'll get some data from that. And there might be other information that we also collect in the application. So what we do is we collect all of that data. Most of our students are within district, and so we are able to go to the elementary school and they provide us all of that information. In fact, if you're, let's say, a student at Lake Norman Elementary, you won't need to give us this data. We'll be able to pull it. Once you apply to our school, we'll be able to pull that data from that feeder school. Now, if you're outside of our district, if you're in maybe a private school, a charter school, or a home school, then you are going to have to provide that data because we won't have access to it. So the question I get oftentimes is some of our private school and home schools don't always have the data that, or use the same data points that we use. That's okay. You're just going to provide us as much data that you can that maybe talk and speak about the same thing. Multiple data points in math and multiple data points in ELA will give us more information to help build a more confident recommendation to you. So we take all of that data, we process it all, and then we then extend what's called a recommendation to you. There are 4 recommendation levels that we provide: highly recommend, recommend, recommend with hesitation, or do not recommend. And they're all based on the data, based on a rubric that we use. And they, again, give you information on whether we feel like this will be a good fit. And we're actually going through this because we started this process last year. We're actually kind of going through and vetting this to kind of see how are our students that are performing in these levels, because ultimately we had students from each of these 4 levels that enrolled in our school and seeing how they're performing in our school. Now, going back one slide here, we do a survey as part of your application. These are the survey questions that you'll find on that application. And I think the point that I really want to drive home on this is that to make sure that you're being honest with us on the survey, because we're ultimately recommending to you, we are not the gatekeeper. You as a parent will get the choice to enroll in the program. But this data, I think, is going to be, if you're dishonest about it, you're only going to hurt yourself, or hurt your child, I should say, if you were to do that. So the first one talks about time management. Again, it fits right into that idea that the kids have to move. They have lots of things that they need to balance at one time. I'm most motivated to learn for the sake of learning. We find that students that are just trying to seek parental approval, or just need a little number somewhere, or just want to check a box, aren't going to make the best use of this. We need students that are resilient. If they face a challenge, they can kind of work through that. We have a big emphasis on helping each other, working in community, working in collaborative groups. This year it's been a little bit tough to do collaborative learning, but I would say in a typical year, almost all of our projects, and I think Ada would probably agree, that all of our projects are working in collaborative groups. And you have to be able to work with anybody. And it goes back to the idea of being an IB, recognizing that people are different than you. They might look different, come from different places, all of those things. And we embrace all of that, and we want people to be able to do that. Because, as we know, as adults, we have to do that in our own professional lives. We also want to have buy-in from the students too, that this isn't a really good program if mom and dad want it, but the child's not really into it. I've kind of changed my thinking. I've been a principal now for 10 years, and I used to think, well, it's always should be just the parent's decision on where the kids go to school, that it's not appropriate for a kid. But I think your child needs to have buy-in to wherever they're going to be attending school, and they'll be more successful if it's something that they want. All right, so again, we take all that information and we process it through one of our recommendation levels. If your child does receive a do not recommend, it means exactly that. We don't recommend this program. We don't feel that it's going to be a good fit. We would encourage you, and we've had this happen, and the student will then go and establish themselves at a traditional middle school, and we can look at them reapplying the following year. If you feel that some of that information may have came at a mistake, or you would like to discuss that, then you need to contact me, and we can sit down and have a meeting by Zoom, and we can discuss that in more detail and talk about your child more specifically. Even students, I had lots of students reach out to me last year, and I would say not lots, because most of our students that winded up attending this year came from one of these top 2 levels. But some of them that kind of pushed through in this hesitation did reach out to me to get more information. And some ultimately, after our conversation, felt like, yeah, maybe this might not work. Again, we want to be inclusive. We want to be accessible to all different types of learners, but we also want our students to be successful as well. So that rounds out the application and the recommendation process. Here's some next steps. And I think the first question you're probably asking yourself is, when does the application start? It doesn't start until January 4th, and these dates are all kind of established by the district. So our application opens in the month of January, and it'll stay open for several weeks there. And so what we hope is, after this meeting, that maybe you'll have a conversation with your child and maybe your spouse, and discuss if this is something that you would like to pursue. And then in January, our school website, the application will go live on our school website. The application window will stay until the end of the month. And then in February is when we'll look to collect the data and start reviewing all of our applications. Again, if you are a student not in our district, we're going to need help on collecting some of that data. And so our data manager is Erin Heeb, and Ms. Heeb will work with you on processing the application. If you have any questions about the application during that January window, Ms. Heeb is our contact person for any of that application information. You can always call the school. Miss Toomey's our receptionist. She can help you, but most of the time we refer all of those questions to Miss Heed. She's a whiz at it. She's done it for a number of years. We hope, and I'm kind of scared to even publish this date in this presentation, but we hope to mail acceptance letters by March 5th. I know last year we missed that date, the date that we told, we missed it by about a week. Oftentimes it's just about how fast we can process the information that we need. Then mid to end March, that's when you're going to take that recommendation and decide if you want to accept that seat at our school. And then we finalize that by April 9th. So those are kind of the next steps in this application process. All right, so that kind of wraps up our presentation. I know what we did is we went through lots of these questions that people had pulled in here, and we typed out responses, and I'll kind of go through some of those questions now. Before we get started, I'd like to one more time talk to Ada. Ada, tell us a little bit more. What made you interested in attending our school, and what do you like best about being in an IB school? Maybe not so much our school, but what do you like best about an IB school?
Well, I had heard a lot of great things about IB since when I was in elementary school, and I had especially heard that it was a slightly more challenging program because of the more classes and a lot of reflection. I heard that you would do a lot of reflection at IB on what you might have done with your projects and what you could improve. And so I thought that would be a good challenge for me. And personally, what I like about being at an IB school is all the collaboration, because you don't just get to work with your friends and text them and say, hey, do you want to work on a project together? You get put in with people from your entire grade. And so you eventually get to know everybody, and you get all these different opinions on different projects.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Thank you, Ada. All right, I'm going through some of our questions now. Some have asked about emailing out the presentation. We are recording the presentation. We have a YouTube channel that will post it there. And we might be able to, I believe we'll be able to post just the presentation. We could do that as well. Languages offered at South Iredell High School. We work hand in hand, and that's what's nice about the continuum, is that Miss White works with the other IB coordinators in the district. And so students that take a foreign language here should be able to take that course in high school. We just offered Chinese last year, and so there's a group of 7th graders this year. Next year, we'll add a third group, so that we'll have 6th, 7th, and 8th grade Chinese. And then the following year, South Iredell should be able to pick that up. Most of the time, the students don't change languages during middle school. Oftentimes, the language that they pick in middle school is the language they do in high school, because you do earn that credit. Like Ada's going to go to high school next year. Are you in French or Spanish?
Currently in French.
French, yeah. So she's going to go to high school with 9th grade French already completed. And so then she'll take 10th grade sophomore level French as a high schooler next year. So it just allows the kids to move faster there. And also the IB, once you get into high school, and Ms. White kind of hit on that a little bit, their diploma program in 10th and 11th and 12th grade is very rigorous, where our program's intended to be more inclusive. Their program, if you pick the diploma program track at 11th and 12th grade, you can think of it as an AP kind of course track. It's very rigorous. And so a lot of times what we have to do here is kind of backwards planning. We have to get the kids positioned to a place where their courses fall where they need to be in order to be prepared in 11th grade. So that's kind of the goal, end goal there. I don't know, Ms. White, did I explain that well? Do we need to? All right. Buses from Statesville to Mooresville, not at this time. We have an IB school. Miss White's also the IB coordinator. She's probably hopping off here in just a few minutes because she's going to jump over. She's the IB coordinator at Northview, which is our sister school in Statesville. You're typically going to be placed at the school that serves your address. Quiz Bowl is, and I believe y'all can see all these answers, hopefully. I believe they can. They can read through these. But Quiz Bowl is one of our clubs. It's kind of like a trivia club. Are the 8 classes done in parallel or sequence semester? Yeah, so we operate on an A-day, B-day schedule. And I'll talk about a traditional year, not this year, because I hope nothing ever, hope 2020 ends. But so in a traditional year, we have an A-day, B-day. And so you'll take 4 classes on an A-day, 4 classes on a B-day, and then it just repeats, right? So, so you might have math, science, a fine arts class, and PE on an A-day, and then you'll have your language acquisition, individual societies, ELA, and design on a B-day. And then on the next day, the schedule will repeat. Most of our courses are year-long courses. We do have a couple of semester courses. Our fine arts class, band and orchestra are year-long, drama, chorus, and visual arts are semester classes, so they'll switch. So Ada said that she's in chorus, which means in second semester, she'll be taking either visual arts or drama. So it'll switch there for her. And then also in math, our design for us is, remember that's that computer tech ed class. It's a semester course, and we match it up with a supplemental math course just to help the kids out a little bit there too. So like Ada right now is in design, so second semester. So when she comes back from the holiday break, she'll be in her math extensions course. All right. Recently moved from another state. Are you able to turn students away for reasons other than space? Yes, we are. I mean, there's other examples of that in our district of students or of schools that are able to do that and have an application process. But again, that's we've attempted to become more inclusive. So if you have a situation that you would like to discuss, I mean, we can certainly have that discussion then. But again, I'm not the gatekeeper anymore. Parents ultimately are going to make a decision, and we'll do our best to support them. We do have requirements from the IB to teach, all 8 courses and to move at that pace. So that's why it becomes a little bit more challenging. What time does school start? We start at 8:25 and dismiss at 3 o'clock. Another piece there, because of our shuttle bus piece there, we do have the shortest school day in the district. When I'm trying to talk to rising 6th graders about our school, if they're ever on the fence, I tell them they have the shortest school day in the district, and that usually pushes them over. The survey questions are really intended by parents and students. Oftentimes I'll get questions, what about a recommendation from teachers? Please don't ask your teacher to write a recommendation. We don't consider the recommendation. If we need to do that at a later date, or if I need to have a conversation with a teacher, I'd be happy to do that at the end, towards the end of that process. There's a lot of questions about space. We have space now. We've also often had a waiting list and a lottery for our school, but we do have more space here. So my goal is to accept all students that want to enroll in our school that meet our application deadline. And so that's how we operated this year. We do have a wait list this year, but those are people that were late applicants. And we moved through and accepted kind of at the last minute, because we have to build a matrix that's really complicated. Our schedule operates much like a high school would operate, with 8 classes, 3 foreign languages, 5 fine arts. It's really hard for us to add a lot of students kind of right before the school year, because we have to plan and build all these classes. So we were able to operate this year by students that met that deadline. So for you, have your application completed in the month of January, and I believe that we'll be able to get all of our students and avoid a lottery. Typical class sizes are about 25 per class. Kind of already talked about that one. Application process is exactly the same for 7th and 8th grade as it is for 6th grade. We don't have a uniform at our school. We do have a dress code, and it's more or less just about appropriate dress. All of the clubs are after school or before school. Our clubs don't operate during the school day, so it would be something that you would have to do in addition. So, all right. Well, I believe I've moved through most of those questions. I think we have a couple open questions. The question about busing students over in the afternoon. That we would just have to look at. I would talk with our transportation director. Just send an email to our assistant principal, Dr. Basham, and she can answer that question best. If TMS is the homeschool, do you have to go to Northview? Yes, we do ask our students because of capacity and such. We have a Statesville campus and we have a Mooresville campus for the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and so we do ask the students to attend the IB school offered in their community. If you want to discuss that, you could certainly send an email to Ms. White or myself, and we can talk about your individual situation. Is there a preference for ISS employees in the application process or siblings at other school? No, it's really just based on completing that application in a timely manner, and we're going to do our best to get everyone that meets that deadline that wants a seat. And again, based on that recommendation, and we'll find and try our best to find a spot for them here. How many seats become open in 7th grade? We usually get somewhere around 15 to 20 applicants in 7th grade and maybe a dozen or so in 8th grade. And most of the time, we don't often have seats that come open. We don't have a lot of kids that leave and go back to homeschool. If we do have students leave, it's oftentimes for moving. And most of the time we're able to fit those kids into this building. And again, if you get that application done there, it gives me plenty of time to try to get staff and classes sorted so that we can provide a space for those students. Again, it's always kind of operating with the idea that we're trying to get about 25 students per class. Our PE classes are a little bit bigger, but most of our other classes are about 25. A great question there about tours being held. We are going to try to do some type of virtual tour in the spring. And so I'm not quite sure how we can do that. We may just tape some type of tour and send that out so you can see our building and maybe see a couple of classrooms in action. But we won't be allowed to bring anybody into the building. But we'll try to do something virtual or at least a recorded tour of our school. Do we need to submit North Carolina Check-In and iReady scores during the application process? No, if you're in our district, then we'll get that information from your school. So you don't have to provide anything. And all these directions are provided in our application, but there's no work on your end. We'll be able to work with the school to get that. There are no, the EOGs are still slated to happen this year, but we're not using that information for this year because there were no EOGs last year. That's why we're using North Carolina Check-In 1, North Carolina Check-In 2, and iReady. So there's 3 different tests that we look at, and we look at it for math and reading. So we wind up getting 6 data points from test scores. Which 3 neighborhoods currently have bus routes, the non-shuttle? Yeah, it changes every year. Not drastically, but I know we have one shuttle that goes down towards the clubhouse and the point. We have one that goes into Morrison Plantation. I believe we have one that might go over to Waterland. Oftentimes the shuttles are in these large neighborhoods. But I wouldn't be able to tell you for certain. Are you able to advance in math? We do offer Math 1 in 8th grade. Some of our students that have done some course advancement through the district's AIG department have been able to subject advance in some courses. And so we have students that take Math 2 and Math 3 as 8th graders. Also have had students take environmental science, which is another high school math course. So we've had that happen, and it's students that qualify for those. Our 7th graders, depending on how students do as 7th graders, will then be recommended to Math 1, which is a high school course, or 8th grade math. Either one of those tracks will still make appropriate for advancement at South Iredale. But some of our students that are taking that high school math course as 8th graders can then earn a high school credit going into 9th grade. Applications do include the classes that you'll select. You use the application and it'll have the different course choices on your application. And so that's another, that's where you pick your courses, band or drama, whatever it might be. Okay, well, I believe that kind of wraps it up here. I don't see any more open questions. And again, I'm Mark Shinkarik, the principal here. My email address is found on our school website, as well as Ms. White, our IB coordinator. We'd be happy to answer any of your questions about the application, about our school. If you want to talk to me specifically about your child, that you have specific questions. I know this is with 100 people here. It was probably hard if you had any of those questions, but I would be happy to have those conversations. Just reach out to me. And I also would like to thank Ada for joining us this evening. She gave up her dance class tonight to join us and help us. So thank you, Ada. All right. Well, have a good evening and hope to see you all soon.